Hello and welcome to Universus. Today we are doing a security log. We are aboard the U.S.S. Cerritos NCC 75567 at star date -29814.2641165,756. I am here and waiting for a Klingon envoy to talk about an ensign who has been causing trouble for the fleet. I believe the transmission's coming through now, and I am joined by General Richard Plumar. Am I correct?
Glory to the Empire! Hello, everyone. I am obviously Klingon General Plumar, here to talk about some puny Federation cards, not glorious Klingon ones. I find the entire situation disgusting. And
What do you mean to die by combat is the Klingon way, and to die and to kill your opponent through combat with U.S. cards is an honourable death?
No, there are no Klingon cards so far.
We don't know. We haven't been given any Klingon cards. A little bit of spoil. We don't know what else is out there.
Exactly.
So 6 content creators have been given 8 cards for each character. So there is 6 content creators for each character. So there is 6 times 4, 28 6 times 4 is 24, 24 in total. I haven't been able to find anyone else who's got Brad Boimler the same as us. I'm absolutely hyped to get a crack at Brad Boimler. He's one of the more interesting characters. But before we get into that, how familiar are you with Star Trek and specifically Lower Decks?
I know Star Trek. I grew up on Next Generation, right? I think if I had to be put on a desert island and, I had one TV program I got to watch the rest of, and that's it, I'd probably pick Next Generation. So yeah, I love Next Generation. I love Deep Space Nine. Yeah, there are other shows as well. I've not watched Lower Decks yet, but I'm certainly up to date with reasonable amount with the Star Trek lore.
Yeah, so I'm not as familiar. I'm more familiar with Lower Decks than the rest of it. If it wasn't on TV when I was ill off school, I probably didn't see many of the episodes. But Lower Decks is a series based off one episode, I think, of Next Generation, or was it the original series?
No, it's Next Generation.
Next Generation called Lower Decks, where they followed the ensigns and the crew, and basically they took this and gave it a comedy spin, and it is now in its 5th season, which is locked on Paramount Plus, and is the closest I've come to buying Paramount Plus.
I wouldn't say it was like a comedy episode. It was just follow the days in the lives of the 4 Lower Decks characters. So I believe Nurse Alyssa was one of them, and there was a couple other ones, and they're and just sort of seeing a day in the life of them and the stuff they have to go through, the camera stuff, going for promotions and day-to-day life.
I mean, the Lower Decks series is a comedy twist on that episode.
Right, okay, yeah. Fair.
Yeah. So we follow Beckett Mariner, who is an absolutely chaotic ensign who has been promoted and demoted. We follow Brad Boimler, who is a by-the-books rule stickler. Sam Rutherford, who is an engineer with a cyborg implant who saves the day multiple times with out-of-the-box thinking. And Tendi Devani, who was a medical officer and transferred into sciences and has got a very cool mind, and is no longer with the crew as of the end of season 4, which is very interesting. But I believe we still will be following her in season 5, and that is something I'm hoping to actually see go down.
Okay.
But U.S. have sent us some stuff out, and explicitly in the email it said cosplay was allowed. So Richard got his LARP stuff out, and I overnighted a Voyager uniform because it was the only one that would get here in time. So, as a big fan of Star Trek Next Generation and someone who grew up on the series, what are you looking for in these cards? What would satisfy your inner Trekkie?
I'm interested to see, like, certainly, obviously we've seen Boimler and him talking about diplomacy cards. So I'm interested to see how U.S. tackles a fairly non-combat IP, right? Obviously, yeah, they do fight with phasers and all that sort of stuff, right? But mostly it's non-combat oriented. I don't know too much about the lower decks, whether that is more than anything else, but Star Trek in general tends to be a lot more talky and problem-solvy rather than shooty, fighty, punchy. Apart from Kirk, who just kind of got his shirt off and punched everyone and then slept with everyone. But interesting to see how they try and sort of tackle those sort of themes in a combat game.
Lower Decks is kind of a love letter to all the previous series. So you got Mariner, who is more punchy, Kirk style, chaotic, but also wants to deal things with diplomacy. Same with Brad and stuff like that. So you have got a fair bit of hand-to-hand combat and stuff like that, but you can't have all your situations handled like that with a series like this. So you do have a lot more diplomacy, and Brad is probably the best character to do the diplomacy with because he doesn't want to get into fights. He wants to just explore and do the next generation thing of going to bold new stars.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so interested to see sort of how they tackle that and just sort of, I guess, the like real high-tech stuff, right? Like ships and phasers and tricorders and pads and things, right?
Oh, we can get the purple tricorder with the stripe down the back. So, you did bring it up. We've seen Brad Boimler. Brother Wynn did a great preview of the 4 characters after some people got a hold of some blurry images and speculated what they would be. I mean, what kind of...
Who would do that sort of thing?
Yeah, who would do that? So, we have Brad Boimler, by the books, Ensign, 627 health. Response: after you play a diplomacy card, your rival commits 1 foundation. Enhance: your turn, each player draws 1 card on life, order, void. And the big cool thing about this card is, I can't remember the name of it, but it's a disappearing card, so it looks like they're being transported, a rectal card.
Oh, the foiling, the way they're doing it. Something venticular or something like that?
Yeah, venticular, something like that. So, it's something I brought up. At the Summit when I was talking about the shift cards and having a poster that shifted. And now we're seeing it on these characters, which was long before I even you said it. But having this phaser effect is very, very cool. Well, having this
lenticular, I believe, was the word we're looking for.
Yeah, having that transport effect, especially with Brad sort of like falling action. Brad does get into a lot of transporter hijinks, so it's very, very cool to see.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what the alt arts and like stuff like that look like with these. But obviously, I guess one thing that has changed is the wording on this card from when we first saw it, because it must have been like an earlier thing, because the original wording, because there was a lot of speculation, certainly that I made, was when you play a card with diplomacy, we thought there might be another mechanic. Well, at least I did. But obviously that wording has changed and it's now so it's just a keyword or some sort. But I mean, again, I think one thing we'll see with a lot of these previews is some of the wording on like enhancers and responses are sort of fit to multiplayer ideas. So each player draws 1 card. Could easily be worded like you and your opponent draw 1 card, but it says each player. So that could be like the 4 of you, you take 1 of each of these challenger decks and take on a Briarwood style event. So I would be surprised if there's not something like that coming along with the release of these decks.
Possibly we would. You've got the Borg, you've got of like one-off villains. You got the Packlids, which is the big bad of lower decks. I know a
glorious, honourable warrior race.
The Klingons get featured in it, and you get to see Klingon lower decks in one episode as well, which is really cool.
But yeah, so like effectively he's a bit Toga 3-ish, right? So play a diplomacy card, stun 1, and then just being able to draw cards. So has a similar kind of just play lots of diplomacy cards, hope to stun your opponent out, and being able to, on your turn, just continuously draw. Kind of doesn't get the stats Toga does, but gets the I'm kind of never running out of gas that Toga sometimes had.
True, but also this is a character that isn't technically gatekept by their keyword on stuff. It has got diplomacy, but you don't need to run diplomacies to do everything. And
sure, but you probably want to jam as many as you can, right? They're similar, like you can play non-weapons in Toga, but why would you, right?
And you have got the hot topic card of the week after the ban list, which is that this guy can run combined firepower and draw in every attack.
Yes.
I think that's pretty cool. If you can get some decent remove effects, if you can get a way to trigger combined firepower, just being able to draw on every single attack seems very decent. As well as the good stacking you get with order. Life's got some great ways to utilize card draw. This Chivalrous was a very expensive card for a long time for a reason, and having Chivalrous on every single one of your attacks seems decent.
Yeah, so Chivalrous was really good because cards were sort of free and people couldn't block your stuff, like in decks like Tokiyami, for example. Like giving your opponent a card didn't matter because they couldn't block anything and you just wanted more gas and you wanted more stuff to fling out to one with nature, whatever, right? And similarly with Boimler, obviously very quickly your opponent's going to get stunned out if he's playing diplomacy stuff. So being able to draw, your cards are doing something, your opponent's cards are just not because they can't block anymore.
Yeah, that's the key thing. You're clogging your opponent's hand. How long can they actually draw for? And when you offensively or defensively play a diplomacy card, your opponent commits one foundation. So it's even better.
That's true, yeah. That's the other side of it, is the defensive side of it, right?
And anyone who's played Commander knows you don't kill the guy that's got draw power for everyone on face, if it is a multiplayer format.
Yeah. I'd imagine it's going to be more of a Briarwoods type thing, but we'll see. Rather than a commander.
The attendee kind of goes that way, but I think Brad may have some competitive impact as well, especially if we look at Brad Boimler, acting captain. 7 hand, 21 health. Look at Brad rocking the chair of the Titan. Enhance, if it's your turn, each player discards 1 card and draws 1 card. Full stop. So new ability. If there are 2 more attack cards in a player's card pool, each player commits 1 foundation. Response. After your rival commits 1 or more foundations during the enhanced step, this attack gets +1 or -1 damage.
Yeah, so the enhance obviously isn't locked to your turn, right? So when your opponent's turn, you don't get to do the rummaging of discard then draw, but from their second attack onwards, they're going to have to start committing 1. Both committing 1 is probably more powerful on defense than it is on offense, because on offense you don't really want to be committing out, but on defense that's really, really strong.
What I want to know is, if we are looking at, say, a 4-player format for this because of the 4 decks, if 3 people commit a foundation, is that -3 damage because it's 3 rivals? Do you respond 3 times?
Unknown. I don't know. Because
it says after a rival, not after your rivals.
Yeah, I would imagine there are 3 instances of committal. My guess would be.
Yeah, so you get to
if you've got 3 opponents that do it, it's 3 instances of committal. But just doing that on your turn, you can give something you're getting 1 damage, they're committing 1 at the cost of a foundation, obviously, and then you get to rummage as well.
Oh yeah, but I'm more thinking for, say, if you're playing triple threat and your opponent A is attacking opponent B for game, and you just get to go, cool. You have 2 attacks in your card pool. This is your second attack. Let's all commit a foundation, and I'll give it -2 damage, which takes it off lethal, and opponent B survives.
Yeah. There's going to be lots of play around this one, him being a 7/21 and having a bit of DR on face, but only on their second attack onwards. I'm not hugely sold. He's cool, but I think I prefer the Ensign version, weirdly, rather than the Captain version.
People were very hyped for martial law, and this guy's doing a lot of martial law stuff, but with everyone.
Yeah. But, you have to... like they have to be committing during the enhanced step. So I mean, obviously, it punishes anything they're doing with their own kind of offensive committal, right, or defensive committal. Like, they commit a foundation for -2 speed. Cool, I'll give it extra damage. So, like, probably something like a throw to be quite good for him, right? Or, they commit for -2 damage. Well, I'll just respond to it +1. So it's much less useful. So, there's stuff you can do with him, I think. It's just, I think his enhance just requires a bit more finagling to work, especially being a rummage rather than just a straight draw one. Like, you have to have something to discard, and sometimes, like, your opponent's out of cards because they blocked your first 2 attacks. Well, you don't really want to press this button anymore because you're just giving them a free card, right?
Yeah, I mean, we also didn't talk about the fact that he gains the fire symbol and loses the void symbol.
Yes, so obviously, different symbols. So looks like we're going to be getting like quite a big symbol spread over these decks. It looks like, if we're seeing different symbols, I'm imagining all of the cards or most of the cards are going to be like life order sorts of cards.
Maybe
because they're the 2 shared ones between the 2 characters in the deck, right?
You're getting ahead of yourself.
Hey, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just like, that's what I would think. That just looking at these characters, right? Similar to how sort of looking at Deku's deck, life was the symbol where everything shared it, right? So,
and that one featured cards on Earth, on all. That was kind of all over the place, just giving all symbols support, which means technically all the symbols have kind of gained support this year, apart from since AOT 1. Because Evil was in the tech index and stuff like that. It's not the most proportionate support, but all symbols have kind of gained that bit of support. But no, I prefer acting captain over ensign, but I'm happy to be wrong. I could also just be being bought in by the art. I prefer this art to the falling art. I love Confident Brad because it's just setting up him falling.
That is fair. Yeah, no, I think, like, Ensign Brad is a simpler character design, right? Like, you just play diplomacy cards and you get to draw loads of cards on your turn, right? Whereas Boimler, the captain, he isn't locked to a keyword.
No.
But you need to work a bit harder, I think, to get the most out of his abilities.
You lose defense and you have to commit yourself, which is a big thing.
Yes, but like his stun is like really, really good, right? Stun 1 is stun 1 +1 damage.
I could see an order freeze build just completely locking someone out.
Yeah, like, his walk the dogs are going to be pretty good.
Oh, 100%, yeah. But yeah, I think the art for this is actually a dream. He's got way too many pips on his neck because he's only an ensign at this point, I believe, and also,
he's got 4, so he's an acting captain, so he might have the
pips reflect your actual rank. And yes, it could just be Khorne, because as it's pointed out in the series, if you see someone in the show that has an incorrect amount of pips, it's probably just Khorne from the diner. But I think this is actually just a dream where he actually ends up being naked in there as well, because he's just having a stress dream.
Right. Okay.
Now let's move on to a first for challengers, and that is the secret rare asset. 6 cost, 4 control, 3 mid block, unique ship, the U.S.S. Cerritos, NCC 75567.
A puny Federation ship, not like a glorious Klingon bird of prey.
A California class ship, get it right. It's a beautiful ship. And for once per turn, reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, add 1 of them to your hand, 1 to the bottom, and 1 to the top. And as Brad quite rightly says, to put you in your place, the Cerritos is a handsome lady.
It's no bird of prey.
It may not be a bird of prey, but for California class ships, it is an absolute beautiful ship.
Yeah, I mean, this is a cool card, right? And also it's got like the 4 symbols, but it's actually got chaos, right? So that's not on either Brad.
This will be, from my headcanon, my theory is this is going to be one of the cards that's in every single deck. which is why it has at least one symbol from each of the 4 characters.
Yeah, I could see that. Like, because it's an SR, right?
Yeah.
It's probably going to be a one-of, whereas like the ultra rares and rares are 2-ofs. So sort of going back on the 2-ofs in every clash deck, challenger deck and clash decks that they used to be. But if this is like they have the same asset in each 4, that's a way of kind of handling it being a one-of.
Yeah.
And what would be cool actually is if these are one-ofs, exact same text, slightly different art, right? You got different art and a different quote in each one. Like this has got a Boimler quote, right? Yeah. And then in all the other ones, there's a quote from each of those of the decks, like Attendee, the quote about the Cerritos, and there's just the same stats, different artwork. That would be, I think, a really good way of doing it.
For this one, I think the artwork's going to be the same, but the quote will be different, like you were saying. For the other one that I think is in every single deck, I think the art will be different, but we'll get to that one in a bit. But
possibly, because it does have the like STK02 right on it, so it's set in the O2 deck. It's not like a generic numbering in terms of this. So I would if it's not a different ship in each one, if it's just a copy of this in each of the decks, I would expect it to have different art, different quotes.
If it was going to be different ships, I think Brad would have ended up with the Titan rather than the Cerritos. I think the Cerritos, because that's the focal point of the series, it's what the ship they all are lower decks on. I think that is going to be the same card. I just don't think there's any need for the art to be different because it's the same ship.
I think it'd be cool. It might be. It might be the same one. I just think it would be cool.
If it was, I can imagine Mariner and Brad having the same art because they're both part of the command structure with the red. And then Tendi and Rutherford having different art because you'll be seeing the ship through an engineer's eyes, through a medical officer's eyes.
Maybe. Yeah. So I mean, we'll wait and see, obviously. But in terms of the card itself, boy, that's a costly asset, right? It being a 6 diff asset with a 4 check, not a very good block mod. It's unique, but what it does give you is very powerful, right? Like a super Giro, like a top 3, and not only that, but you get to draw one, confirm your next check, and then make sure something on the bottom of your deck is then, you put your bad check away, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a very powerful form. Doesn't commit it. Obviously, obviously I'm going to use your power and everything, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see whether it really is good enough to warrant playing.
The big test will be if Kyle puts this in No Foundations Mimic.
Yeah, he can. It's on Chaos, right? Yeah. So
if Kyle puts into No Foundation Mimic, and maybe he can cheat it out with I'm Here or other stuff.
Oh yeah, this would be a great one to cheat off I Am Here. Like you've won the lottery if you do that. But I could see playing it as a one-off in that Mimic, right? It's a really powerful asset. It doesn't commit, so it's then you get to do the form, and then you've got it as a resource to commit.
You just get to go reveal top 3 cards of my deck, add an attack to my hand, put an attack to the bottom, stick an asset on top, check the asset, pick up an attack. I am now an 8-hander for that turn.
Yeah, like you're always +1 at your +1 hand size. And your first check, or whenever you need to do it, like the check after this is always basically confirmed.
Can we also talk about the designer's card? I love the Star Trek sort of framing of the actual border of this card. The way it looks like the interface.
Oh yeah, it's a sweet card.
Yeah, the designer's card is absolutely gorgeous. The artist went all out because this is original art. This isn't a screenshot. This is original art for this card, and it looks amazing.
I really like the sort of the pad styling of the border there. We'll have to wait and see on other cards whether they do a similar thing. But I'd imagine some of the alt arts and things like that really sort of, again, I hope lean into the theming. Because obviously the discussions we've had with Zoe before and her art team, like they're really high on doing that sort of a thing. So
they really are. They're great with the translation aspects, but I could possibly see it being more of an alt art thing because getting a full alt-art deck with that kind of border really cool.
And even the check and the difficulty, right? Again, stylistically, very Star Trek.
Very Star Trek.
Or very, yeah.
It's very reminiscent of the fantasy style Critical Role stuff, but more rigid and technological, which is very, very cool for me.
Yeah. But yeah, it's really cool.
It's very cool. It's powerful.
I would expect to see this in all 4 of the decks.
And it's an SR, which is something we've never seen before.
And that's why you can justify it being a one-of SR in all the decks, because it's going to be in all of them.
Even if it doesn't see play, this is a collector's item. This is one that all Trekkies are going to want.
And I really want to see what the alt art's going to look like of this.
Yeah, the alt art. I can imagine the alt art being the Cerritos when it had no hull. So one of the episodes, they're going through a magnetized sort of belt, and the hull of the ship is drawing in the asteroids, so they have to take off the entire hull and demagnetize the ship, and they're basically flying with a windscreen rather than a display, and they're going through it with all wearing like the space gear to breathe. That would be a very cool alt art.
Okay.
But yeah, all these cards that we see in the main deck seem to have some aspect of the show. So I will try and remember my best where each of these cards is actually from the show. And I know if you go check out the Dobbers video, Scott did something very similar where he was talking about how impactful the art was for the episodes of the show, because we've got a lot of fans of the show. But let's move on to the other asset in the deck, the Com Badge. A next generation sort of exclusive where you have the badge that you tap to communicate, because in the original series they used a flip communicator.
Yeah, they use flip phones.
And in next gen you just tap your badge.
Yeah.
So it's a 2 diff, 5 control, 2 low block. We love a low blocking challenger. Enhance, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put them back in any order.
Well, enhance commit.
Enhance
so
commit,
there is a plus there.
Look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put them back in any order. Flavor text, do you know why they don't just make comms that can't be interfered with? Because of what they don't want us to hear. Lieutenant Levy. That's a nice conspiracy theory.
But yeah, a solid asset. Like, again, being able to Giro yourself once per turn, pretty good. Like, you know, it's sometimes hard to find space for assets, but this one's pretty decent. Again, either draw the card you need with your 1/5 flip, draw a card foundation, or confirm your next 2 checks, or oh no, there's 2 3s on top of my deck. I need to stop going in, or whatever. You know, it's having that ability on Giro is always really, really powerful. So
100%. And I was going to say that this is a very cool deck to run a card to running Mimic, but there's a problem with that, isn't there?
Because it's got the Order Attune symbol.
Yes, these are the first attuned cards we've seen outside of AOT. And it's very interesting that they've gone with the Star Trek to bring this in. And and like the other part of it is, it's not all attuned, right? This is a mixed world, because if you go back and look at the U.S.S. Cerritos, that was just a 4-symbol card. Yeah, that could have been an infinity attune, infinity symbol. Like we got with the One for All wielder, but we're seeing regular resource symbols mixed in with attunement, and that's great. That's more of that. Let's use attuned. I want to see attuned used sparingly as more filler cards, and having like these regular resource symbols for identifiable cards. Yeah.
Again, like, I think going back to sort of looking at the old world, it's like I'd like to see normal symbol kits back page attuned. Would be sort of how I would like it. But yeah, so obviously attuned is still a thing. These would have been designed and printed long before they had any sort of feedback for AOT 1 and AOT 2 as to how attuned has gone down. So, you know, if they've decided to abandon ship on that, then that will come later, right? It will just go by the wayside, but that'll be later.
They're not going to abandon it before Apocalypse anyway.
No. But yeah, like it's cool if you've got a space for it. It does a thing. It's a good thing, right? Especially if you're a deck trying to string, this helps you do that. And especially at the turn you build it, like it gives you a bit more defense on that turn because you can use it.
See this is a cheeky one-off in Rodan and other cards that want to like secure their checks and want to know what's going to be going in. It's just an extra stat. It's just extra use of Rodan's.
He doesn't have order, right?
Rodan has order.
Am I going mad? No, he's void, all, and another and air. He's void all air.
Oh, he's void all air. I thought he didn't have air. Oh.
No, he's void all air. But yeah, it's a cool card if you can find space for it, right?
Yeah, it's a very cool card. I love the look of this card because you can clearly see that this is built around the flavor text. This is Brad being very uncomfortable being told about his com badge, and then you got the technological backs that like backing, and this is a UR, so this is going to be foiled, and I really hope the technological backing plays into that foiling. It's not just like a matte foiling. We get that kind of wires and like very cool foil pattern that U.S. is known for.
Yeah. These cards always look so much better in person. So.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, they always do look absolutely amazing. So let's talk about Brad's trip on the Titan. So at the end of season 1, Brad leaves the Cerritos and joins Will Riker on the Titan. And he's on a away mission with a team, and unlike the Cerritos, which is more of an exploratory second contact ship, the Titan is always in combat. The Titan is always out there rescuing people, rescuing planets when they're not listening to smooth jazz. And we get the survey mission where Brad and the team go down to help out and free some local miners. And this is a 6 diff, 3 control, 3 mid for 7 with a 2 mid block. Throw diplomacy, order attuned with what seems to be diplomacy's gimmick. Blitz, your rival chooses 1. They reveal their hand. Your attack gets +1 speed, +1 damage, or your rival commits 2 foundations. And the response, after your rival draws 1 or more cards, this attack gets +2 damage.
Yeah, so this leans into both Boimlers, right? So it's a diplomacy for the Ensign Boimler, and it's a throw for acting Captain Boimler, like because he wants to be able to just load damage on stuff. And obviously his enhance makes them draw cards. Ensign Boimler makes them draw cards so that you can get those triggers. The Blitz on this, again, obviously we can see Blitz is back.
Well, Blitz is still around, yeah.
Yeah. It being an opponent choose, they tend to be not the greatest in terms of they'll always choose the one that matters the least, which is almost certainly going to be they reveal their hand. Like, I can't imagine many situations where your opponent doesn't just reveal their hand to you, which is good. Like, having that information is useful, but like giving your attacks +1 speed, +1 damage the rest of the turn, that's pretty beefy. And giving this stun too, which again you don't necessarily want to do, especially against acting Captain Boimler, right? Because that's effectively two damage as well. Oh, sorry, 1 damage.
1 damage.
But yeah, so you're almost certainly going to reveal the hand, but having that information is nice at the beginning of a turn. If they don't see their hand,
but at the same time, if they reveal their hand, if you're leading off of this, they're giving you all the information you need.
Yeah. Sort of.
Ensign has your
character. Because your character, if you're acting captain, they get to rummage, and if you're ensign, they get to draw. And if you're not doing that, and to give this +2 damage, like what are you doing?
So if I reveal my opponent's hand and they don't have throw hate, but I know they run it in the deck, I'm going to leave this as a 3/7 that I know is going to deal damage rather than let them draw into throw hate.
Yeah, maybe. It lets you, again, like the information isn't worthless, but it's probably the one you're going to get like 80, 90% of the time.
Do you know who this will be the best? Do you know who the best character is to play this against?
Who?
Nezu. I'm just gonna sit there with a bunch of cards and go, I'll draw a card. Do you want to draw? No, I don't want to draw a card. But I do like this because it fits in with the Ensign side of it. They are the lowest on the totem pole, so they're being given orders by other characters. That's what his whole thing is. He takes orders, he follows the rules. So having your opponent give him orders kind of fits him so thematically, as well as the fact it's diplomacy. Going, this is an attack. This is a powerful attack. It's a 3 mid-7 that keeps getting stronger. So I'm going to justify this by saying you get to choose my effect. And sometimes it's just going to be a case of you choose how you're going to die.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to wrap my head around how, like, doing this diplomatic survey mission becomes a 3 mid-7 throw, right? Again, not knowing, like, the sort of the setting, not necessarily knowing the episode and what happens, but, like, yeah, like how this sort of converts into
so
a 3
what's
mid-7
happening
throw.
Here in this part of the episode is Brad is overloading their reactor on the planet, their mining like power source, to expand a ion field and basically completely disrupt and allow for the people to escape. He's sacrificing himself doing the red shirt thing. So it's kind of it's more for the art. It's on the survey mission and what's going on. They kind of catch themselves. So they tried diplomacy, but this is basically him in the episode. He's going on his transporter clone knowledge of Riker, and this is where he gets his own transporter clone.
Right.
But yeah. I don't think what's actually happening here
Thomas Riker
has anything to do with the blitz and the response. We get William Boimler from this one.
Okay.
And so I think it was a survey mission that became a rescue mission, but sometimes the effects don't have to accurately display the name of the card.
Yeah, sure. I'm just trying to kind of wrap my head around the sort of the thematics here, right? That was kind of my initial kind of questions with this stuff is how do we, and it might be a case of it's just a little hand wavy and it's just a 3-7 throw, right? And that's fine. But yeah, I mean, it's a really cool card. Like I say, it fits in with both of these characters doing sort of what they want, right? So yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, makes sense. So then we move on to foundations because we haven't got all the attacks to show off, but I'm sure this theme of your rival picking is going to be very cool, and I hope to see it utilized very well. But let's move on to First Contact Day. So as a avid Trekkie yourself, you must know what First Contact is without any kind of lower decks.
Yes, it's when Zephram Cochrane first broke the warp barrier and then met the Vulcans. So that was like their first contact, when they first encountered the Federation and other races. Yeah, so First Contact is when any species achieves a technological status to the point where the Federation extends them a olive branch and basically says, you're part of the Federation, you're on our thing. And then gets abandoned for hundreds of years. Never really it's basically when they're technologically advanced enough to break the warp barrier. Yeah. It's generally when they make first contact.
Cool. Right? We'll keep an eye on you, make sure you don't blow up the universe, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then second contact is something that they establish in lower decks, where they go around and check on all these first contact planets from Next Generation and the original series that have never been checked up on again, because some of them that worship computers end up worshipping the computer again.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a 2 5 control, 2 high block. While this card is ready in your stage, if there is a diplomacy card in your card pool, your rival's attacks get -1 speed. Your turn, enhance, commit. If your rival has 11 or more foundations, commit 2 rival foundations. That is very interesting to me because that could have just said deadlock.
it could have done, and it didn't.
Yeah.
Which is strange, and obviously a decision, and it maybe leans towards Deadlock going away, or the sort of framing for Deadlock becoming different. Who knows? I would have liked to have seen this itself had diplomacy, right? Hopefully, we can see some more of these foundations with diplomacy rather than just the attack.
I don't think diplomacy should be on a foundation. A foundation is your training, it's your experiences, it's the stuff you go through to help guide.
If you can have weapon on a foundation, you can have diplomacy on a foundation.
But I think diplomacy should just be a thing of action, an attack. I would see actions or assets with diplomacy more than foundations.
Maybe, but if you've blocked with a diplomacy card, you're effectively given -1 speed to everything, or you've played an action or something into your stage, or found another way of getting something into your card pool.
Okay, there's one foundation I would accept having diplomacy on it, and that is the board game that Sam and Brad play called Compromise. And basically, it's a game they're playing where they have to go through diplomacy to reach a compromise. And the saying of the game is, if both parties are unhappy, then you have a compromise.
Mm-hmm.
But I like this. It's
okay. Again, as long as you've got enough diplomacy cards you're blocking with, because it doesn't say this doesn't stack. So, if you get 2 or 3 of these in your stage, right, then all of a sudden you block with a diplomacy card, their attacks are at -3 speed.
I would love to have seen something like this with Vestige and Deku.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, it's a similar idea of if you want this card to work, you need to have a load of diplomacy cards.
Yeah.
And it does have a little bit of that pseudo deadlock on it. So it has a little bit else going on.
It's
okay. But again, it's sort of the first one has a little impact, but it's when you start stacking these up that you block with one, you're now -3 speed for the turn.
And what's happening in this episode is, I think it was something that was in the other series as well. It was Captain's Day.
Yeah. Captain's Day, when Picard gets trapped in the elevator with 3 kids and sings Frere Jacques.
Yeah, so it's when the ship celebrates the captain, and basically everyone says it's just for kids. But Brad goes on a whole thing of decorating the entire part of the ship with Freeman Day. And what basically happens is a ship gets destroyed on its way to First Contact. So the Cerritos rescues the ship and establishes First Contact themselves. And it's the first time they've done a First Contact thing, so they celebrate making First Contact. So it becomes First Contact Day. Hence why it changed from Freeman Day, which is the name of the captain.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. And it's just another example of Brad just being... Brad undergoes such good character growth from being someone who is so obsessed with following the letter of the rules to more following what the rules are supposed to be for. He does really undertake the Cerritos Mariner sort of lessons, because when we get into season 2, season 3, they're starting to sort of subvert Star Trek protocol, or Starfleet protocol, to do what's best for the people of the planets.
Okay.
Which is very cool. It's not something you really see in the series, but it is something that
it's very Picardian.
Yeah, it's very Kirk and Picard. It's very rebel. I will do what's the good of the many outweighs the good of the few, kind of like that. Then we move on to our next foundation. We got a Borg foundation with Chronically Dehydrated. It's a 2-cost, 5 control, 2 mid-block, Ensign Enhanced, so is limited to the 4 cards that we have. Discard 1 card. This attack gets +2 damage. Only playable if your character has the Ensign trait. Enhanced, sacrifice 1 foundation, freeze 1 ready rival foundation. Life attuned, and this art is from the episode where they get a Starfleet review for preparedness, and basically it's rigged against them to make them fail, to prove that the preparedness department of Starfleet is actually relevant because Enterprise and Titan and all the things keep passing it because they're so used to it. So the administrator comes to Cerritos and everyone fails apart from Brad, who keeps retaking it because he wants to get 100% pass rate. And he's saving Borg babies, teaching the Borg Queen compassion, and then he has to fail it and tank it all. And at this point, he's tied up. The Borg Queen comes over to him and says, "You'll make a great genetic addition to us. Look at the. We've not seen anyone." He's like, "I'm human." He's like, "Really? Your skin is so flaky and dehydrated. You need to drink some water." And it's like, "Oh, you're getting burned by the Borg."
But yeah, this is pretty good. Obviously, just sort of looking back at the acting captain, he obviously doesn't have the Ensign trait or any traits actually. So this would only work.
Right. But I guess if he's an acting captain, he's not.
It's probably deliberate, right?
Yeah.
But so this one's only really usable with the Ensign Boimler. But discarding a card for +2 damage is pretty good, especially when you can effectively draw on every attack.
Yeah.
So it's a way of using those excess cards during your turn, and then having it be also like a deadlock out to sacrifice and freeze one ready rival foundation. So you freeze their worst foundation. So that's the bit that's sort of going to work with the captain, right?
Yeah.
So this says, I will freeze your face down foundation and I will then stun one. Is that the one you're going to stun and therefore lose it as a resource in the next turn? Or are you going to stun something with actual text? Right? So that's sort of, I guess, what it's working as, and also a way of keeping yourself out of deadlock.
Yeah, but it also works as kind of like for the original and by the book Ensign, it works as kind of like a pseudo one with nature, because you play diplomacy, they commit one, you draw a card, you discard a card, get 2 damage, and then you get to go, I'll sacrifice the foundation that I've committed to basically go freeze that ready foundation. Oh, I sacrificed a Erin's Trial. You commit a foundation and you've stunned 2 down, or it's kind of like, rather than you get 2 damage and stun 1 on all of your attacks if you are just discarding cards.
Yeah, so this is where you want to be sacrificing to freeze their good foundations or their ones with commit effects, right? Not their good. You want to be doing either the ones with commit effects or their worst foundation every turn, because that's obviously the one they're going to stun, hopefully. So you're just kind of, you're often not going to necessarily get to freeze anything with this, but you're making sure your stun is hopefully getting more relevant pieces.
In a multiplayer game, could I freeze a rival foundation that is not the one I'm currently engaged with?
Who knows? Who knows how multiplayer works?
That would be very interesting. I think under the
but they're in a Briarwoods, they're not your rivals, right?
No, but if you say in a triple threat, I don't think you can, because your engaged rival is the one that's kind of like, unless it says any rival, because Broberg worked very hard on those rules. But if we get an official kind of like Star Trek Lower Decks multiplayer, if I can basically sack a foundation and go, I'm playing with you and Gary and I'm attacking Gary and go, okay, Richard, your foundation's going to be frozen. If you commit that during your turn, you're not going... If I'm planning to attack you next, going, I'm going to go for you, and then my next attack's going to go at you. You're going to have to commit foundation and get it frozen. It leads to very cool plays. I think this one foundation makes Brad very powerful. Anyone that can draw a lot of cards is going to be very powerful this card.
Yeah, it's decent. Like,
Recover Go Throw could also do some nasty stuff with this.
Especially and also like discarding cards put through 2 damage on your survey mission as a throw. Yeah. Pretty good.
I'll draw a card, get 2 damage. I'll discard a card, get 2 damage. That's really, really cool. And then the last card that we have, which is very, very cool.
It is Rule Stickler. So it's a 3/5 foundation with a 1 low block. Response: once per turn, after your rival builds 1 or more foundations during the combat phase due to a non-character effect, commit one of those foundations. So
one low.
Yeah, it's got a really nice block, but it is a 3 diff, and it's powerful but narrow, right? Like obviously it works against things like always cool or like a hardened jab type effect.
Overhaul, Armin,
no, their character. This is non-character.
Non-character. Okay,
yeah. So that's why I say it's like this feels like maybe more of a sideboard card, like in a constructed term. But obviously, given we've got this in the deck, we're maybe going to see some of those effects on attacks, foundations, and stuff within the other decks. So it's a powerful effect because this doesn't have to commit to do it, right? So you can do it on their turn, your turn.
There's 2 parts of this I love, and I'll start off with this least thing I love more about it. In a multiplayer format, this just lets you do it in your opponent's turns while they're taking their turns against other people. Mm-hmm. The thing I love the most about this, it has no cost. It is not committed. It's not a flip. It just goes, you build in my turn, you're committing one. You build in your turn, you're committing one.
Yeah.
It's a very
and you commit to the things they build, right? So, like, for example, like a canister creation strike. They destroy something, build something, commit it, please.
Yeah. If you get a enormous axe, if you get... I guess it doesn't work against weapons clashes that already builds and committed, but enormous axe will do it.
Yeah.
Hard and fist if they build.
Yeah, there's a plenty of those effects, but again, given this exists in the deck as the rare foundation, I'm imagining we're going to be seeing a few effects that build mid-combat phase during this.
Do you know what Brad really needs? Mop Strike.
Yes, he would probably love Mop Strike.
He would absolutely love Mop Strike.
So would half the characters in the meta would love Mop Strike.
True. As for where this art is, God if I know. He is such a smug little rule follower.
Well, he's in dress uniform, right? So
he's always in dress uniform. This is the Cerritos uniform.
What, with the
flap,
line going down?
With the flap and everything. Yeah, that's just their base uniform.
Oh, okay.
But I think this might be around either buffer time or when he's getting ready for his interview with the captain.
Right.
Because buffer time, this would be amazing if it was part of the buffer time episode, because he is so good at his job. When they get rid of buffer time, he is still just performing his job to the optimal. He's the only person that's able to complete all of his tasks, including without any buffer time, and literally gets a rule named after him that ensigns and crewmen can take as long as they need to get a job and disregard the rules. So he has a rule named after him of not following the rules, and he hates it.
Okay.
But yeah, he is a rule stickler. This is very early on in the series, and he's got that smug, very early Brad Boimler face on him where he's about to dob someone in who's going against the rules, or if he's about to try and impress a higher officer. So I don't know where about this in the series. I'm sorry I've let you down, but I do love this art, and I think the alt art of this is going to be his statue for the buffer time rule, because he is literally remembered like 200 years in the future as the laziest member of Starfleet.
Okay.
Which is amazing.
Fair. But that's all the previews that U.S. Games have sent us. Obviously, thank you very much to U.S. Games for letting us be a bit silly and preview these to you and chat about them.
100%.
They look pretty cool. Obviously, it's interesting to see Attuned come back. It's interesting to see Blitz come back, and obviously them not being hard linked to Attack on Titan anymore. Is something we weren't really sure about. So yeah, really cool. And it'd be interesting to see how these decks play out going forward, and what the contents of the other ones are like, right? And what those other characters are. Whether we see different ships in each, whether they got different art, what the arts look like. There's a lot more to come, obviously, with spoiler season for these. So they look pretty cool. Obviously, we only got to see one attack today, but you're very interested to see how the other attacks play out in each kit. and how the rest of the diplomacy stuff, despite it being weak and feeble and without honor or glory, I guess we'll have to see what the rest of these diplomacy cards do. Because that's what the puny Federation like to do.
Yeah, we only saw 8 of the 22 cards. Do go check out all the other content creators. There are going to be some crossovers between who got what, but everyone's going to have very unique opinions on all of these cards.
Yes. Not all of them will be in high-class Klingon cosplays.
Yes, no one else may have also overnighted a wrong uniform, but hey, I went all out with this. This is I love this setup.
I don't know what you mean. I've gone all out. Can
I point out that the star date I've put on this is exactly to 8 p.m. on Friday, the 8th of November 2024. I got the actual star date and everything. I went deep with this. But yes, there's 14 cards left to go. I believe we're going to be dropping them next week if we can. If you want to tape another Mars bar to your head,
we'll see. We'll see whether Klingon General Putlama comes back or not. But
that might give you enough time to get that might get you enough time to get a uniform.
Yeah, as Ensign Brett says, go check out all the other content creators and see their takes on both these cards.
Look at the pips. I'm chief of engineering. I'm chief of deck engineering.
As I was saying, go check out all the other content creators, see their takes on these cards and all the other cards that have been spoiled. Once again, thanks very much to UVS Games. And obviously, thanks to everyone for watching this video. Do all the algorithm things, or else I will come to your house with a batleth and cut your head off.
Yep.
I won't really.
You do not want Richard showing up at your house in the middle of the night. It's not a great sight. We'll let you all get off because it is AOT release day, so people are going to be cracking packs while watching this. And we'll leave you with a very simple live long and prosper.
Glory to the Empire!